arid ground of that age was not merely a path to walk upon, it was a test of survival. After short wet seasons, clay soil swelled with water, then split apart under the burning sun. Beneath the surface, pockets of air and weak mud formed deadly hollows. One wrong step, and the earth could collapse like a broken breath. Back then, the ground was unstable, a young land, newly shaped after violent geological upheavals. The early bands of humans had to learn to listen to the vibrations of the earth, to tell the difference between firm and hollow ground. From those losses, the habit of probing the soil before stepping was born. It was a new reflex, the reflex of a being that could anticipate danger before facing it. Course of evolution, this act marked the beginning of awareness. Understanding the environment, cause and effect, the first stirrings of human intelligence. In that age of drought, water was the border between life and death. The dark, damp forest was the only place that still held moisture. But it was also home to countless ancient insects. Giant wild bees occupied hollow trees to guard their honey and humidity. When the primitive humans entered, the clash between two species sharing the same thirst for survival erupted. Venom, stings, and chaos awakened their defensive instinct. Amid panic, the primitive hand accidentally discovered the power of smoke and fire. A half-burned torch became a weapon. Flames burst forth, driving away the insects and saving the group. In that instant, humankind for the first time wielded a force of nature to protect itself. Fire was no longer just warmth, it became the boundary between safety and extinction. From that moment, in the memory of evolution, fire held the meaning of survival, friend, weapon, and the beginning of control over nature. That act marked the dawn of conscious mastery, the foundation upon which human intelligence would later rise. Across that white wasteland, thirst became a merciless trial. The ground was coated in salt crystals, remnants of ancient waters dried by endless heat. What little water remained underground was tainted, unable to sustain life. The primitive humans, driven by desperate thirst, could not distinguish between living water and dead water. Salt burned their lips, seared their throats, drained their strength. Yet in that agony, the instinct to observe began to awaken. They learned that not all water could give life. From that first loss came new behavior. To test, to smell, to taste. Simple acts that held deep meaning for survival. They marked the ground, warning those who came after. That salty land became the first place of memory, where humankind began to leave signs for others. In the dry, bitter wind of salt, the seed of understanding emerged. The realization that the world was not only what could be seen, but full of hidden trials beneath its surface. The wind was not only the breath of the earth, it was also the bringer of death. Across the dry sands, when heat rose high, the air twisted into columns, swirling and devouring everything. Grains of sand, sharp as needles, struck skin, eyes, and lungs. The primitive humans endured the fury of the sky, something they could not grasp, could not clearly see, only evade with body and instinct. In that first storm, they learned to crouch low, to cover their heads with animal hides, to gather dry branches and form windshields. These movements did not come from thought, but from the reflex of survival when the body sensed danger. When the wind stilled, beneath the fragile shade, they first realized the strength of gathering together, sharing breath, sharing shelter. In that desert of sand, humankind discovered the first way to create its own shell of protection. From that moment, the idea of refuge, of shelter, was born into human memory, marking the beginning of an instinct not just to endure nature, but to resist it. After the storm, the ground was so dry that even moisture vanished. When dark clouds gathered, the primitive humans lifted their eyes. For the first time, they hoped for something to fall from the sky. But the sand was too hot. Every drop that touched it turned instantly to vapor. Water was no longer salvation, only a reminder that life was so fragile, even touch could make it fade. Desperate thirst, their hands began to dig, nails tearing, blood mixing with dust, yet the earth stayed silent. Then a dark spot appeared, a trickle of murky water escaping from deep sand. They bent down, the smell of soil mixed with sweat, the salty taste within each drop cherished like blood. From that moment, humankind learned that moisture could be born from within the earth. They learned to choose hollows, to see the color of wet ground, to carry water in stone hollows. The rain had not saved them, but thirst had taught them to make water their own. It was the first shift from waiting to acting, from enduring to seeking. The survival instinct guiding humankind closer to understanding land and water. After days of thirst, hunger became a silent roar within their bellies. Across the dry sands, no tender roots or young leaves remained, only faint tracks of beasts struggling to live, like them. Primitive humans followed scents, read the depth of footprints, listened for falling stones. Every sense stretched tight to find life amid death. When prey appeared, hunger turned to strength. Sticks, stones, and bones were used at once, moving with their breath, with the cries of the group. when the meat burned on fire and the smell of fat drifted in the wind. They knew warmth and food were born from the effort of many hands. Among smoke and ash, humankind understood that force was not only for defense, but for reclaiming life. The hunt on dry sand was a turning point of cooperation, where the actions of individuals merged into shared power. From that meal, humans learned to use the world around them as an extension of their bodies, the first step toward planned pursuit. After surviving hunger, the primitive humans moved deeper into the damp lands. Where there was water, danger hid as well. Beneath the mud, among tree roots, venomous creatures waited in silence. When a hand touched the soft ground, a hiss broke out, the line between life and death no thicker than a breath. The bite sent fire through the arm, blood racing, skin swelling and darkening. In that moment, humankind discovered that the cold of mud could soothe pain. They pressed wet earth against skin, feeling the chill spread, the blood slowing. In fear, they learned that the ground was not only to walk upon, it could protect the body. When the sun dried the mud, the wound eased. From the serpent's bite, humankind first sensed the bond between body and earth, that the very thing they walked on could also save them. In that journey, blood spilled into soil, and from it, the first seed of healing knowledge began to take form. The last waterhole amid burning sand drew not only the primitive humans, but other thirsting hunters. Ancient hyenas, long-toothed and hollow-bellied, charged forward with snarls. On the dry ground, the smell of blood mixed with steam. Sticks, stones, and fire swung by instinct. Clashes echoed through air thick with the scent of flesh. The humans circled, holding one another within the ring of fire as the beasts retreated into smoke. Each motion, each strike was not only to live, but to defend the little water left for the group. When silence returned, ashes covered the bodies of both human and beast. Smoke drifted like a farewell. From that ash, the group kept the fire alive until dawn, eyes fixed on the cooling embers. Amid the burnt scent, they preserved memory through stick marks on the ground. The flame was no longer only warmth, it became a keeper of those who had fallen. From blood, fire, and night, the feeling of kinship among the survivors was born, silent as the breath of the earth. After many days of wandering, the primitive humans found the last pool beneath a rock hollow. But around that source were others, same form, same breath, same thirst. Under the blazing sun, the sound of sticks striking earth roared like thunder. Water splashed upward, mingling with mud and blood. For the first time, the enemy was not a beast, but human hands. The clash was brief, violent, then still. Only panting and the iron smell of blood hung in the air. When a child bent to catch falling drops, both groups stopped. The silence cooled their rage like ashes settling. They shared what little water remained, drinking in exhaustion. By the pool, 2 spears stood crossed, marking the fragile border between the living and the fallen. At night, the group sat on either side of the fire, the glow reflecting on still water. The wind blew, shadows of the spears bent, touched upon the surface, and became one. From that moment, the blood and breath of early humankind began to understand restraint, to share in order to survive within a merciless land. When the ground cracked to its bones, when every pool turned to dust, the primitive humans still moved onward. Beneath the dry stone, moisture hid deep, revealed only by a faint cool breeze from a fissure. Rough hands followed the sound beneath the earth, turning stones, listening for the echo of water. One fell into the crevice, and at that instant, the stream burst forth. Water from the earth's heart surged upward, cold and strong like the breath of the mother ground. The tribe was covered in mud, eyes bright in the first mist after endless thirst. The fallen did not return, but the current kept flowing. They knelt around it, touching the water, lips trembling. Mud, stone, and breath became one. As night fell, fire burned beside the newborn stream, ashes scattered at its edge, bones carved with the shape of the flow. Beneath the moonlight, mist rose and blanketed the cracked land. For the first time, water, earth, and loss merged into something sacred, where life continued from death, and the current became the memory of the whole tribe.